I discovered an incredible mess upon returning home, food on the floor and hidden secrets exposed. The door creaked open, revealing a chaotic scene. Sarah's heart sank. The kitchen, once filled with the aroma of her mother's famous chili, was strewn with takeout containers and spilled cereal. An emptiness echoed through the home she had longed for while buried in textbooks. Her family's laughter, the very heartbeat of this place, seemed to have vanished. As she stepped inside, memories flooded her mind, the warmth of family dinners, the stories exchanged around the dining table. Now, the silence wrapped around her like a heavy shroud. She shifted her gaze to the corner where a mountain of laundry loomed, a visual representation of neglect. Panic rippled through her. What had happened here? The reality was stark, a painful reminder of everything she had sacrificed for her studies. While she had been steeped in books about anatomy and pharmacology, her family had unraveled in ways she couldn't have predicted. Her mother sat in the living room, staring blankly at the wall, the usual spark in her eyes extinguished. And her younger brother, once so full of promise, roamed the house with a sullen expression, lost in his own discontent. Sarah felt a futile pull in her chest. She couldn't abandon her dreams yet felt tethered by family loyalty. The dichotomy tore at her, forcing her to reevaluate her choices, a tug-of-war between ambition and the responsibility of kinship. Before she could fully process her surroundings, her eyes were drawn to a dusty box tucked away in the attic. Curiosity prickled at her, leading her upstairs where the air felt thick with nostalgia. As she pried open the lid, a stack of worn journals met her gaze. Her grandmother's handwriting leaped off the pages, revealing tales of resilience and tenacity. Each entry unfolded a chapter of life as a pioneering nurse, battling against the odds in a world riddled with prejudice and economic strife. With every word, her admiration deepened. Her grandmother not only cared for the injured but also fostered a community. The small clinic where she had treated countless townsfolk filled her with a sense of urgency. What if Sarah could revive that legacy? But dread welled within her. Her family carried the weight of what had happened after her grandmother's death. They couldn't face more disappointment, and the prospect of reopening those old wounds haunted her like a specter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As whispers of her grandmother's contributions stirred around town, Sarah felt the pressure intensify. Excitement bubbled amidst skepticism, her family's reluctance a heavy anchor. What if they just couldn't? What if the community had already forgotten her grandmother, and by trying to reclaim the clinic, she faced the same scorn? Her mind raced. This was not just about her aspirations anymore, it was about rescuing their name while fearing the burden of failure. Then it hit her, a revelation buried in the journal suggested her grandmother had been more than just a dedicated nurse, she had been an unyielding advocate for systemic change within healthcare, shine hidden from their family's narrative. This dark truth threatened to drown her. Could she honor a woman so rich in defiance, yet stand on the precipice of a family legacy that loomed larger than her ambitions? What if she couldn't bear that responsibility? She stood frozen, the chaos of her childhood home swarming around her, the journals becoming both her guide and her chains. In an instant, she felt unmoored from her path. Would she pursue this daunting quest to restore dignity, or would the weight of familial loyalty suffocate her dreams? Tension gripped her, the future hazy though possibilities shimmered on the horizon. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on Sarah as she sifted through her grandmother's journals, her heart racing with each new revelation. The nurse's fervor for change spilled from the pages, a vivid testament to the power of one person's resolve against the odds. Yet, it was not just her grandmother's legacy that commanded Sarah's attention, it was the realization of her own capacity for resilience. Tucked within the written words was a call to action that resonated deep within her. Perhaps she possessed the same instinct to fight for what was right, despite the fear that coursed through her veins. In the days that followed, Sarah oscillated between reflection and resolve. Every glance at the disheveled home reminded her of her family's decay and the urgency of a future that hung in the balance. The desire to breathe life back into the clinic transformed from a wild aspiration into a tangible mission. She spent her nights researching healthcare disparities instead of studying anatomy. The numbers painted a stark picture, illustrating the failures of a system that often left the most vulnerable without care. Yet as her passion ignited, doubt frequently crept in, taunting her ambitions with reminders of her family's circumstances. The pull between her deep-seated wish to honor her grandmother and the silent cries for help from her family grew increasingly tumultuous. As she stood at the precipice of personal transformation, each step toward reclaiming her grandmother's legacy felt heavier than the last. One afternoon, as she carried out laundry from the living room, she spied her brother Sam slumped at the table, head buried in his hands. The weight of his despondency was palpable. With her heart racing, Sarah approached him, bracing for a confrontation. "Sam, what is going on?" she ventured, voice softer than she intended. He looked up with glazed eyes, uncertainty flickering like a dying light. "I'm fine," he offered, though the quiver in his lips betrayed him. "Really? It doesn't seem like you are." She pulled out a chair and sat across from him, refusing to let his denial stand as an answer. His silence hung heavy, guilt evident in the way he avoided her gaze. I feel lost, okay? Everyone expects me to know what I want, but I'm not you," he finally admitted, the walls around him seeming to close in. At that moment, Sarah felt the edge of something coalesce within her. She couldn't ignore the parallel struggles they faced, intertwining paths against overwhelming odds. "But you don't have to be," she said, words steadying herself as much as him. "I've been lost too. It's not about being perfect, it's about finding what matters." His eyes flickered with the slightest glimmer of hope, a momentary breath in the suffocating silence. As the days turned to weeks, Sarah knew that the battle ahead wouldn't just be to reclaim the clinic but also to reclaim her family. She started to share her grandmother's story, weaving threads of their past into conversations with Sam while working diligently to restore order in their chaotic home. They tackled the laundry together, cleaned the kitchen side by side, and slowly constructed a semblance of normalcy from the remnants of their fragmented lives. But deep within her, a restless energy lingered. The goal of restoring the clinic bubbled at the surface of her thoughts, competing against the more immediate need to patch her family's wounds. The resolve stiffened with each day they worked, yet deep down, she feared that both endeavors could shatter beneath the weight of expectation. Would she find the balance between saving her family and honoring her grandmother's legacy? As Sarah contemplated her next move, a surprising knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. The source of that knock could alter the trajectory of everything she had been planning. With a shaky exhale, she approached the door, not knowing that the answer on the other side would challenge her to reconcile ambition with family loyalty in a way she could never have imagined. With a hesitant hand, Sarah opened the door, the hinges creaking in protest, mirroring her own internal tension. Standing there was a figure she hadn't seen in years, Mr. Anderson, the former owner of the clinic, a man whose reputation hung like a storm cloud over her memories. His presence brought both a flicker of excitement and a surge of unease. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and somber. "I heard about your plans to regain the clinic. Can we talk?" Her mind raced. The clinic represented not only her grandmother's legacy but also an opportunity to serve the community. Yet, Mr. Anderson's past corruption, betrayal, and a hasty departure loomed large. "What do you want?" she managed to ask, guarding her heart carefully. "I know I wasn't the best steward for that place," he began, rubbing the back of his neck. "But I've seen how the community has suffered since it closed. I've been researching and I might have some information that could help you." Against her better judgment, curiosity gnawed at her. What could he possibly know that would be of use? As he spoke about his recent findings regarding healthcare funding and grants, a mix of skepticism and intrigue enveloped her. The facts he presented might turn the tide in favor of the clinic, yet the twisted history they shared left a bitter taste in her mouth. "Well, I don't want anything from you," she interrupted, firm in her stance. "What you did before it cost a lot. And there are people still hurting because of it." He nodded, acknowledging the weight of his past. I know, and I'm trying to make amends. But time's running out. The community needs this clinic back. This isn't about me, it's about those who suffer. Sarah's heart hammered furiously. The notion of assisting people, of helping the vulnerable, resonated powerfully with her, yet the spite she felt for him was alive and kicking. Was she willing to partner with someone who had contributed to the pain? Before she could reply, the door behind her creaked open wider, and Sam emerged, bewildered by the intrusion. "Who's this?" he asked, suspicion evident in his voice. "Mr. Anderson wants to talk about the clinic," Sarah replied, trying to shield her brother from the electricity that charged the air. Sam's brow furrowed, his previous despair momentarily forgotten. Why should we trust him? He asked the reason it fell apart in the first place. The fire in Sam's words reignited feelings Sarah thought she had managed to bury. "I understand your wariness," Mr. Anderson interjected, weariness etched into his features. "But think about what's at stake. You both have a chance to do something impactful." Impactful? Sam's voice dripped with skepticism. "You mean for yourself?" Sarah's stomach tightened. The conversation, once a flicker of potential, spiraled into battlefield territory. How could she navigate both her ambition to restore the clinic and the raw emotions building like a dam threatening to break? Each man had something to lose if she couldn't find common ground. In the turmoil of conflicting emotions, Sarah made a decision. "Let us talk, but know this, trust can't be bought or sold. It takes effort and honesty to mend what you've broken." As she led Mr. Anderson into their small living room, the atmosphere felt electrically charged. A fight for the clinic was only part of the battle ahead. She had to reconcile the past before she could step boldly into an uncertain future. Would she have the strength to uncover the buried secrets in this endeavor, or would history repeat itself? As Sarah sat down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the conversation would spiral into revelations that might change everything. The path ahead loomed, dark and unpredictable. Would she unearth the truth, or would the weight of hidden agendas crush her dreams? The air in the small living room was heavy with anticipation. Sarah studied Mr. Anderson, determined to peel back layers of his past while fishing for any glimmer of sincerity. She felt her heart thumping violently, torn between the need to revive the clinic and the allure of loyalty to her grandmother's memory. Resting her hands on her knees, she took a deep breath, seeking clarity amidst the chaos. "Start from the beginning," she instructed, trying to steady her voice. "Why now? Why help us?" His gaze faltered, lingering on the worn rug before him, evidence of a life rebuilt after destruction. "I've seen a lot from the other side, Sarah. I was focused on profits instead of people." His voice cracked slightly, as if admitting that mistake chipped away at his own identity. "The funding sources changed, and I ignored the signs of trouble. I thought the clinic would survive without genuine care, overestimating projections, underestimating trust." Sarah felt a jolt of frustration. His flat explanation was nothing new. She had already lived through countless empty promises. Yet, confronting her own judgments, she realized that this conversation could reveal insights beyond the past. What brought someone like him to this reluctant reckoning? "Why should I believe you now?" she pressed, her resolve tightening like a vice. He looked directly into her eyes, an earnestness forming in the crease of his brow. "Because I'm willing to share everything, every account, every error. Along with connections I've maintained since I left. There are funds available that can support a revival, if you're willing to navigate the bureaucracy." For a brief moment, Sarah envisioned the clinic restored to life, filled with vibrant colors and the sound of laughter echoing through the hallways. Yet, she knew how naive that vision felt against the backdrop of their ugly history. "What's the catch?" Anderson took a long pause, as if weighing the words he chose next. "No catch. Just the chance to make it right. You have to want this clinic to be client-centered from the start. I want to help you build the right foundation by including ongoing community involvement. This isn't about me anymore." His declaration floated in the space between them, shadowed by her own skepticism. "And how can I be sure that this isn't just self-serving? What's your real agenda?" I don't have one, he replied, his voice steady and unwavering. I've seen how simplistic it can become when running a healthcare venture without integrity. I wish I could go back, but all I can do is offer you what I've learned. Despite herself, she felt a flicker of uncertainty creeping in. Could she really align with someone like him? As the weight of the past clawed at her resolve, she could not ignore the urgency of the moment. Would her bitterness sabotage this opportunity to help? Okay, Sarah said slowly, let us assume I entertained this idea. What's the first step? He smiled, edging closer to resolve her doubt. We put together a proposal for funding. First, we need to gather all necessary data about what the community needs. That means we must prioritize health issues, gather testimonies, and show why the clinic matters. Her mind raced. She had always been a meticulous planner, but the depth of this undertaking felt daunting. It could expose her vulnerabilities not just as a leader but as a person unearthing a legacy now hers to preserve. While Mr. Anderson scripted a plan on her notepad, Sarah felt a wave of unease wash over her. This was a deal laced with risk, and she would be inviting shadows from his past right into her future. The tension wound tighter in her chest. As she listened to his steady voice, a sense of determination began to pulse through her veins. Maybe this wasn't just about rebuilding an old clinic. It was an arduous journey of discovery, one that could redefine her resolve and cultivate her leadership abilities. Could she turn these fragments of ambition and responsibility into something transformative for herself and the community? As thoughts swirled, driving her to question the depth of her courage, a single question gnawed at her mind. How deep was she willing to dig to save not just a clinic but a piece of her past? And just like that, another realization hit her. A hidden fear loomed like a shadow. What if Mr. Anderson wasn't her biggest challenge? What if, beneath the surface, there were secrets waiting to surface, threatening to expose vulnerabilities she hadn't anticipated? The stakes felt higher now than ever. Without a clear pathway ahead, Sarah gathered her thoughts, igniting an ember of purpose. As she exchanged a glance with Mr. Anderson, her resolve solidified. If she was to embark on this journey, she needed to be prepared for whatever darkness awaited. But what kind of truth lay buried beneath the facade of goodwill? Was she truly equipped to face it, or would the experience unravel her entire sense of identity? The clock ticked steadily, each second a reminder of the uncertainty that loomed. Sarah faced Mr. Anderson, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. The path ahead was shrouded in fog, and every thought she entertained echoed disbelief and determination in equal measure. This was a precursor to transformation. She could feel it stirring within her. First things first, she said, the firmness in her voice contrasting with her spiraling thoughts. Let us break down what gathering data entails. I want to be thorough. He nodded, a flicker of respect sparking in his eyes. We start with surveys. They can both quantify community needs and document personal experiences. Connecting with former patients will help. We need their stories to create a narrative that resonates. We'll have to gain their trust, something I took for granted before. The air vibrated with the gravity of that statement. How could they expect trust when it had been merely a casualty of prior neglect? Sarah's mind whirred, contemplating ways to rebuild that trust, even as self-doubt lurked at the edges of her resolve. Trust isn't easily regained, she replied, scribbling down notes that felt more like fragile dreams than actionable steps. We need to approach this delicately. If we screw it up, we could alienate those we want to help. He lifted an eyebrow, clearly acknowledging the complexity of the task before them. You're insightful, Sarah. But we have to start somewhere. It requires vulnerability on both ends. If I could lay bare my failures, surely we can extend that invitation to them. She nodded, pushing her fears aside. Mr. Anderson's keen insight into her own hesitations made her reevaluate her leadership style. How could she ensure that she, too, could open up? Maybe this was where her personal development would take flight. Trust is cultivated through transparent communication, she mused aloud, reflecting on her initial resistance to collaborating with him, a man marked by past failures. We'll need forums or community meetings. An open-door policy could help. We have to be visible, consistent. Are you willing to face their anger as well as their hope? His expression shifted, a mixture of reluctance and resolve. I'll depend on you for that. This journey is as much yours as it is mine. However, this requires planning, strategy, and accountability. Remember, every action sends a signal. We have to set the standard from day one. Her pulse quickened. It was all becoming so real, the implications of every decision weighing heavily. She could sense the fire igniting within her, blending ambition with trepidation. This wasn't just about reviving a clinic, it was about stripping bare the wounds of her past, giving them air to heal. Okay, she said with renewed determination. Let us get the first survey drafted. We'll test it with a few friends and adjust according to feedback. Then we can roll it out to the community. As they delved into drafting questions together, Sarah began to discover her own talents emerging from this new role. Probing questions, empathetic language, and engaging formats, it all began to flow as though she could feel the crucial points of connection forming before them. Each word built a bridge, each idea solidifying the foundation they were trying to construct together. But, as she immersed herself in this creative process, a nagging thought crept back in what further hidden truths lay in wait, poised to derail this rebuilding effort. She wrestled with her growing apprehension, the notion that perhaps Mr. Anderson was merely the tip of the iceberg, one that could plunge her deeper into turmoil. Mr. Anderson, she ventured hesitantly, if you want this to work, you have to be completely honest. Do you have any other skeletons in your closet that could get in the way? Anything I should know? He hesitated, the tension palpable. She held her breath, the uncharted territory ahead beckoning ominously, yet offering the promise of discovery. The silence hung heavily before he finally responded, a shadow passing through his eyes. There's always more than meets the eye, Sarah. But I promise they will be dealt with if you choose to trust me. As the stakes rose, Sarah's heart thundered, her resolve fortifying within. The walls were closing in, and she was standing at a precipice. How far was she willing to go to embrace the truth, and what layers lay buried under the surface awaited unearthing? Each heartbeat was a countdown to clarity, but the deeper she ventured into this game of trust, the more she felt herself unraveling. What awaited her in the unveiling of secrets? Would they ultimately bind her to this mission or shatter her ambitions? With a racing mind and unsure footing, Sarah sensed a new chapter of truth was about to unfold. As they delved deeper into drafting the survey questions, a strange mix of excitement and anxiety began to coil within Sarah. With each inquisitive question they formulated, she felt a burgeoning clarity, yet accompanying it was the weight of unspoken truths that loomed like storm clouds overhead, threatening to burst at any moment. Let us focus on crafting questions that prioritize open dialogue, she suggested, her initial resolve shifting into passionate determination. Instead of just gathering data, we need to invite their stories, their journeys. We have to cultivate an atmosphere where they feel safe to speak out. Mr. Anderson reviewed her latest drafts, nodding in agreement. Exactly. The format matters too. We want to encourage narratives. Perhaps include an option for respondents to elaborate on their experiences. Personal stories will resonate more deeply than mere statistics. As they continued brainstorming, Sarah felt her confidence blossoming. Proposals flowed with increased vigor, and she reveled in the newfound rhythm of collaboration. But interspersed within that creativity was a persistent echo, a reminder that their progress might be sidelined by revelations that still lay hidden, waiting to disrupt their efforts. On a particularly quiet afternoon, Sarah decided to put her growing leadership skills into practice. She scheduled their first community meeting, feeling the tremors of excitement mixed with the fear of inadequacy. The room felt too large, echoing with potential that could also swiftly become time for confrontation. What if they didn't respond positively? What if they were met with cold indifference or outright hostility? Hours before the meeting, she stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing her speech. The reflection that greeted her was an amalgamation of fear and resolve. This was more than a dialogue, it was a reckoning. She inhaled deeply, gathering the fragmented pieces of her resolve into a focused intent. Today was not just about the survey, it was about taking ownership of her journey. Confidence surged as Sarah stepped onto the small stage. She opened the meeting with a heartfelt introduction, citing the purpose of their gathering. "I want this space to be a platform for everyone here, not just to give feedback, but to share experiences, thoughts, and feelings about the past. And together, we'll figure out how to rebuild trust." As the conversation unfurled, snippets of shared experiences came alive. Her heart raced hearing raw emotions expressed, insecurities stripped bare, and memories flooding in from the past. Yet, she couldn't shake the shadows lurking in the back of her mind. Some members thanked her for her candor, but others scrutinized, their expressions tinged with skepticism. "Why should we trust you?" asked a middle-aged woman with tired eyes. "You're just another face in the system." The question hit hard, reverberating through Sarah's chest. She had sought their trust, yet here she stood on the precipice of their doubts. "I understand your concern," Sarah managed, her voice trembling but resolute. "Trust has been broken, and I can't promise immediate answers. I'm here to admit that I don't have all the solutions, but we can work together. I want to earn it back, but I can't do it alone." As the meeting progressed, she uncovered hidden strengths. She had scarcely acknowledged: the ability to listen without interjecting, to validate feelings with authentic empathy, and to engage with purpose. By embracing vulnerability, she was steering the team toward a path previously obscured by her fears. But just as hope began to surface, she sensed a deeper discord. A member from the back, arms crossed defiantly, whispered something to her neighbor. Their furtive exchange stripped Sarah of the empowerment she felt moments before. Confronting realities is easy when you don't know the full picture, she thought, a kernel of doubt nesting in her mind. What if they unearthed something I wasn't prepared for? Was Mr. Anderson being truthful when he mentioned buried truths? At the meeting's conclusion, Sarah felt buoyed yet battered, empowered yet apprehensive. With sincerity, she thanked the members for their honesty. But as she walked away, she felt the echoes of their concerns resound in her heart. There had been a momentary connection, yet the shadows never truly dissipated. What contradictions lay ahead? Returning to her desk, Sarah resolved to dig deeper, not just for the community, but regarding Mr. Anderson's words. What more could he be holding back? The realization sparked an urgency inside her mind. There would need to be another discussion, a confrontation with him. Pad and pen in hand, she prepared for a talk that would dive into uncharted depths, ready to extract truths obscured by layers of discretion. The fire within her surged, pushing her forward into the unknown. Would uncovering hidden realities deepen the bonds forged, or tear apart their tenuous progress? As she faced the prospect, unwavering determination burned bright within her. In the quest for truth, the tangled web of relationships had only begun to be unraveled. What secrets lay entangled in the threads of their pasts, waiting for her to discover? She braced herself for the daunting confrontation looming ahead. Sarah's determination propelled her forward, yet the approaching confrontation with Mr. Anderson weighed heavily on her. As she filled her notes with potential questions, doubt gnawed at her. She needed to frame her approach carefully, balancing assertiveness with the humility to accept whatever truths surfaced. The following morning, Sarah entered the office with a resoluteness that seemed almost foreign. The air felt thick with unspoken tension as she walked toward Mr. Anderson's office, heart pounding rhythmically in her ears. She knocked lightly before entering, catching him in a moment of concentration, his eyes flicking up to meet hers with an unsettling mix of surprise and anticipation. "Sarah, what can I do for you?" he asked, though his posture suggested he already sensed the magnitude of her intentions. "Can we talk?" she replied, refusing to let her nerves strip her of composure. "I need to discuss some things about the meeting and the past." "It can't wait." "Of course," he said, gesturing towards the chairs across his desk. As she sat, a swell of courage enveloped her. This was her moment to confront the fog of uncertainty enveloping their project and, more importantly, the layers of unacknowledged truths. "Mr. Anderson," she started, her voice steadier than she felt. "During the meeting, several members expressed a deep distrust in our intentions and capabilities. I could sense that they were holding back, perhaps because of things left unsaid. I need to know what those things are." He leaned back, studying her, and for a fleeting second, she felt a flicker of hope that he would meet her honesty with transparency. It's complicated, Sarah. There are histories in this community that have festered for years. Opening those wounds isn't easy. Then let us not just talk about opening wounds, she pushed, leaning forward. Let us talk about healing. If we want to move forward, we need to confront what is keeping us from gaining their trust. Your insight is critical. I can't do it without knowing the full scope of the past. What are these buried truths? He hesitated, as if weighing the impact of his words. There were event scandals involving previous initiatives that failed to deliver on their promises. People were hurt, both emotionally and physically. The ramifications have echoed through the years, making the community wary of outsiders. As his words hung in the air, Sarah absorbed the gravity of their situation. Each revelation was like peeling an onion, layers of hurt, betrayal, and disappointment. She had unknowingly stepped into a minefield, but odd determination began to replace her trepidation. What exactly happened? She asked, urging him to delve deeper, her curiosity igniting her resolve. Some local programs were mismanaged, he sighed, rubbing his temples. Resources redirected, while the people in need were left with false hope. I wasn't part of that disaster, but I inherited its aftermath. The people don't just distrust outsiders, they distrust leadership itself. The implications crashed over her like a wave, pushing her head underwater. The truth was heavy and overwhelming, a stark contrast to the optimism she had clung to during their planning. Could they truly navigate the debris of prior failures to create a successful partnership now? I understand, she replied, a knot forming in her stomach. But understanding isn't enough. If there are specific stories or grievances, if there are individuals involved, then we have to face those too. It's the only way we can rebuild. Mr. Anderson nodded slowly, his expression suggesting resignation mingled with a hint of newfound respect. You're right. This won't be easy, but we need to take inventory of what's been left unsaid. You'll find allies among them, but be prepared, not everyone will be willing to share. At that moment, clarity struck her. This confrontation wasn't merely a quest for information, it was about uncovering the very fabric of human experiences, the foundation on which they would build this initiative. She could feel the potential for connection and healing as. Daunting as it was, it offered a glimmer of hope. Thank you for sharing this with me, she said, her voice firm yet grateful. I'll work on organizing a forum, creating a space where these stories can be voiced. We need to show the community we are committed to navigating this journey together. As she turned to leave, a sense of urgency filled her. This was no longer just about the initial survey or the upcoming dialogue, it was about her becoming a facilitator for truth, about being a change agent in a realm rife with unearthed grievances. The stakes were higher than she had anticipated. What confrontation awaited her when those buried stories would finally surface? And would the process of unearthing those hidden truths shatter the fragile connections she had started to forge, or would they forge stronger bonds of trust? Sarah braced herself for the unknown, understanding she stood at the edge of something significant where healing and conflict could collide spectacularly. With her purpose solidified, Sarah dove headfirst into her plans for the forum. She compiled an outline of potential topics, carefully choosing words that conveyed both sensitivity and strength. This was not merely a meeting, it was a critical juncture, a chance to stitch together a frayed community fabric. She painstakingly crafted invitations, reaching out to individuals she believed held valuable insights into the past, embedding personal messages that spoke to the sincerity of her intent. Yet in between her strategic planning, vestiges of doubt crept in. What if no one showed up? What if old wounds festered too deeply for meaningful dialogue? The gnawing anxiety followed her, manifesting in restless nights and distracted days. It was maddening. She was caught between her ambition and an underlying fear of failure, that fear of being unable to bridge the gap between the past and their current efforts. As the day of the forum approached, Sarah sought advice from colleagues who had attempted similar initiatives. Their experiences eased some of her burden but left her grappling with the harsh realities of change resistance. It was one thing to plan an event, it was another to elicit raw emotions and foster an environment where trust could bloom anew. She spent countless hours researching conflict resolution strategies, trying to wrap her mind around how to facilitate what she knew would be difficult discussions. On the day of the forum, she felt like she was fighting against an invisible foe as anxiety twisted her stomach into knots. The empty chairs scattered across the room echoed her fears, a physical manifestation of her uncertainty. She was determined, yet each passing minute heightened the pressure she felt. As people began to trickle in, she felt a surge of hope, tempered by the reality that she could not control their responses. "Thank you all for being here today," she started, her voice trembling slightly despite her best effort to project confidence. "We're gathered not just to discuss the past, but to understand how we can move forward together." The murmurs in the room hinted at skepticism and reluctance. A woman stood up, her expression stern, arms crossed tightly against her chest. "Why should we trust you? You're just another outsider promising change. What's different this time?" The question hung in the air, a challenge that pierced through Sarah's carefully constructed facade. She felt the weight of every unspoken word behind that statement. "You're right to question," she replied, her courage rooting her to the spot. "But this isn't just about what we think is best. It's about listening to your stories, truly hearing your concerns, and understanding how the past has shaped your expectations of leadership. We owe it to ourselves to confront that openly." As the forum progressed, stories flowed, some layered with pain, others edged with anger, and a few sprinkled with flickering hope. Each narrative was a window into the devastating impacts of the past, but Sarah soon realized that her role extended beyond merely facilitating discussion. She needed to be an active participant, not just an observer. With every shared story, Sarah could sense the narrative shifting. Walls began to come down as people saw her not as an outsider, but as someone genuinely invested in learning and transforming from their histories. The discomfort didn't disappear completely, but it transformed into a raw sort of connection. They were grappling with the truth together. After the session concluded, a few individuals lingered, still wrapped in the shared space of contemplation. Among them was the woman who had initially questioned her. "I see now," she murmured, "that you really do want to help us face this." The relief coursing through Sarah was palpable, yet she understood that this was merely the first step in a long journey. Together they had taken a significant leap, not towards complete trust, but towards a willingness to address the fractures of the past. As she began making plans to follow up with those individuals who had opened up, she was struck by an unexpected realization: this wasn't just about them healing. It was also about her. She realized she was no longer just tasked with the responsibility of facilitating others' journeys, she was reshaping her own narrative too. What new complications lay ahead? Would the fragile connection they had begun to form withstand the weight of further revelations? Sarah stood at the crux of opportunity and risk, ready to take on whatever awaited her in the increasingly complex landscape ahead. As days blurred into weeks, Sarah found herself navigating the aftermath of the forum, a combination of exhilaration and weariness propelling her forward. Each follow-up conversation revealed nuances she had not anticipated, and with every exchange, her understanding of her community deepened. Yet, amidst the elation of connection, a haunting sense of dread lurked at the periphery. The world she had endeavored to comprehend was vast and tangled. Through her conversations, stories emerged that carved paths into the complexities of the community's collective memory. One morning, she spoke with an elderly gentleman who recalled the neighborhood's past in vivid detail: the dreams and disappointments, the shifting faces of families that had long since moved away. Each tale was a thread, weaving a tapestry of history, and she felt an intoxicating sense of responsibility to honor those moments. However, just as she began to leverage her new insights, she stumbled upon an unsettling truth. During a discussion with a local leader, she learned of an old conflict that had been swept under the rugs of history, a bitter land dispute, bitter enough to splinter friendships that had spanned decades. "People still take sides, Sarah," he warned gently, his voice riddled with concern. "You may bring up the past, but you need to be careful about what you unearth. Not everyone is ready for that." His caution set off alarm bells in Sarah's mind. Was she unwittingly pulling at a thread that could unravel everything she had worked to build? The stakes felt impossibly high. She grappled with her desire to confront the past, to highlight its significance in shaping their futures, against the potential for reigniting old wounds. Her instinct to protect this fragile connection clashed with her resolve to confront uncomfortable truths. Questions raced through her mind as she wrestled with her approach. Should she take the risk, leading the conversation down a path that could potentially fracture the nascent ties she had established? Or should she tread lightly, choosing to fortify the camaraderie without exposing the skeletons that rattled in the collective closet? The weight of indecision sat heavily on her shoulders. During a particularly restless night, Sarah resolved to consult her mentor, Claire. Known for her soft yet firm wisdom, Claire had always been a guiding star in Sarah's professional development. After describing the situation, Sarah sensed an increasing tension in her mentor's silence, as if Claire were weighing the implications of Sarah's revelations. "You must remain authentic to your purpose, Sarah," Claire finally replied, the strength of her words grounding Sarah. "But you need to balance that authenticity with empathy. Not everything must be confronted head-on. Sometimes, it's a process, layering understanding slowly over time. Build them up to those conversations, rather than pushing them into the depths of a fray." This advice solidified a new resolve within Sarah. She realized that confronting the past didn't always have to be abrupt. It could unfold gradually, a sculpting of perspectives and acceptance woven with care and patience. Respecting the community's rhythms while staying true to her mission felt like walking a tightrope, but it was a challenge she was willing to embrace. As she planned her next discussions, she felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through her. Each conversation would be a step toward finding a balance, fostering trust while also opening avenues for deeper reflection. Yet with this newfound clarity came the realization that the deeper she ventured into their histories, the more she exposed her vulnerabilities. With a heart racing against the pulse of uncertainty, Sarah prepared for the next gathering, knowing full well the risks that lay ahead. How would she approach the sensitive topics she now understood were present? Would they rally together, or would past grievances overshadow any progress they had made? The path was fraught with uncertainties, and vulnerabilities lingered like shadows, waiting to be faced. What haunting truths would surface in their next discussion, and could Sarah maintain the fragile tapestry she had begun to weave? She stood at the precipice of emotional confrontation, ready to face whatever lay hidden beneath the surface. In the weeks following the forum, Sarah had shifted her focus entirely. The experience had ignited a fire within her, steering not just the revitalization of the clinic but also her own evolution as a leader. Daily, she walked the fine line between ambition and responsibility. The community, once filled with skepticism, slowly began to embrace her intentions. Each conversation carried the weight of history, but Sarah found strength in their shared vulnerability. The tangle of community stories became the catalyst for her purpose. Sarah encouraged open dialogue, where past grievances mingled with hope for the future. She met people from every walk of life, each encounter laying the foundation for building trust. The skepticism that once clung like a shadow started to dissipate, replaced by conversations steeped in collective wisdom. One afternoon, during a community meeting, she observed a group of faces, some aged with experience, others youthful and eager to engage. This mix created a powerful dynamic. It breathed life into her vision for the clinic. They shared stories, not just of sorrow, but also of resilience and triumph. It showed her that healing was not a destination but a journey, one that required the embrace of both past and present. Together, Sarah began, her voice barely containing her resolve. "We can create something profoundly meaningful, something built simply on trust." Each word echoed the sincerity of her mission, reverberating within the hearts of those gathered. She felt the shift from doubt to commitment, a palpable surge of determination binding their collective aspirations. As discussions flourished, she finally faced the specter looming over their efforts, the land dispute. She crafted an invitation to talk about it, aware that silence would not mend the rift. The community needed a safe space to air their concerns, and Sarah could lead a conversation that confronted previous grievances without dismissing their grievances. Her heart raced as she prepared for this delicate yet vital discussion. "Let us acknowledge our past and take the first step towards healing," she instructed the group, determined to approach the conversation with empathy. "This clinic represents not just healthcare but also unity, and I believe we can move forward together." Moments passed as she looked around the room. Finally, one resident spoke up. "It's a complicated history," he admitted, voice trembling slightly. "But we owe it to ourselves to at least discuss it. This breakthrough moment punctuated the air. Encouraged by the willingness to confront fragilities, Sarah felt like she had unlocked a pivotal chapter in her journey. Their courage marked the beginning of reconciliation, stitching together years of strife into tangible progress. As the meeting progressed, Sarah sat amidst raw emotions that carved through the air. Arguments erupted, uncertainty transformed into voices demanding accountability, and perspectives collided. Yet the more they debated, the deeper their connection to each other affirmed, like grounding roots anchoring a tree amidst fierce winds. It impressed upon her that real growth required discomfort and vulnerability, a balance she had struggled to understand until now. In the days that followed, she worked tirelessly to keep those conversations alive. With every encounter, she absorbed both her own and others' experiences, understanding clearly that leadership was not just about making decisions, it was facilitating healing paths for collective growth. Soon, the community recognized her not just as an architect of change but also as a beacon of possibility. Then a week later, a letter arrived, an unexpected but welcome surprise. The health department had approved her proposal for funding, allowing her to begin renovations for the clinic. She felt the ecstatic thrill of accomplishment wash over her, the culmination of hard work and persevering doubts. With the funding approval in hand, Sarah stood before a crowd once more, ready to unveil the news. Today, she said, her heart surging with pride, marks a milestone in our journey. Thanks to our shared stories and trust, we can now build a clinic that reflects our community's needs. Together, we will heal not just bodies, but spirits as well. The applause that erupted resonated like a symphony of hope, validation not for her, but for every person who had shared their story. This moment crystallized her growth and reaffirmed her resolve. Her once fractured spirit now radiated a profound confidence in her leadership abilities. The true reward lay not only in the clinic's future but in how she had navigated her development as an advocate, a connector, and a profound believer in the power of community. Sarah had crossed delicate thresholds, transforming adversity into motivation. The silence that previously enveloped her childhood home had given way to a robust chorus of voices celebrating mutual success. As she reflected on her journey, the chaos that had surrounded her, the doubts that had haunted her, and the communities that had rallied, it was time to embrace finality and acknowledge her growth. Sarah stood at the nexus of both personal triumph and professional promise. The future brimmed with possibility, filled with the lessons of merging dreams with action. Now, she was ready. She had conquered her fears, achieved her goals, and, above all, embraced her legacy. This was not just the restoration of a clinic, it was the reclamation of her identity and an acknowledgement of the profound impact individuals could make together. Yet, her journey was still unfolding. Inspired by the bonds she had formed, there were still stories to collect, communities to unite, and lives to change. With her heart open and her visions clear, this was just the beginning. Don't let this moment pass without taking action. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could inspire your path. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help these stories reach those who need to hear them. Comment below your thoughts. What did you reflect on from Sarah's journey? Share your reactions and theories about her incredible transformation. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to be part of this journey of personal overcoming.